Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Friday, September 26, 2025. I'm Bobby Kuza. Mayor Adams today met with Benjamin Netanyahu after the Israeli leader delivered a defiant message to the United Nations about how he's prosecuting his country's war against Hamas terrorists. Meanwhile, the actions of a federal ICE officer took center stage in the campaign for mayor. Our Kelly Mena joins me now with more on tonight's top story. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Bobby. And we're just days away or weeks away from that November election, and the candidates were out and about in the fallout of another incident at 26 Federal Plaza. It seems that immigration and foreign policy were the focus of today's campaign.
We welcome the news that that officer has been relieved of their duties.
There's been quick reaction in the aftermath of an immigration and customs enforcement officer shoving an immigrant woman. On Thursday, in a video shared by journalists, an ICE agent can be seen pushing a woman in front of her kids to the ground. The moment sparked after her husband was detained coming out of a routine immigration court appearance. That officer has now been relieved of his duties. Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic mayoral nominee and Ugandan immigrant, had this to say in the fallout.
Not only is this administration breaking the law, judgments from court orders, but also doing so in a brazen fashion that is as if gleeful in the cruelty they impart upon New Yorkers.
There are some instances that I see that are completely over the top. That doesn't mean the ICE agents should lose their job.
Republican nominee Curtis Lewa sees it differently.
I think everybody needs to take it down a few levels. And I think you got to understand, a lot of these ICE agents really didn't join to be grabbing people who are not the bad hombres.
The incident is the latest in President Trump's immigration crackdown in the city that has seen masked agents separate families. In a statement, a spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security said, "The officer's conduct in this video is unacceptable and beneath the men and women of ICE. We will conduct a full investigation." Meanwhile, Mayor Adams met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after he addressed the United Nations. Adams spoke with Netanyahu after his address, which sparked a walkout by some UN members. Adams later said in a statement that he sympathized with Israel's right to defend itself and bringing its hostages home from Hamas captivity. Mamdani, who has previously said he would arrest Netanyahu if he were to become mayor, had a different message than Adams for Israel's leader.
What has been so infuriating to me and to so many New Yorkers, frankly, is Benjamin Netanyahu's use of the hostages as a justification to continue a war that has only continued to endanger the lives of those very hostages, as well as of so many Palestinians.
Sliwa was also asked about that meeting between the mayor and the Israeli prime minister. He said that he would do the same thing, be welcoming and not arrest him if he were to come here. He said that the mayor doesn't have anything to do with international relations or foreign diplomacy, Bobby.
So, Kelly, I feel like it's unusual for ICE or Homeland Security to give any ground to critics or to, admit to any sort of wrongdoing. So how did this go down? The officer was basically relieved of his duty, but not admitting any sort of wrongdoing?
Well, yes, not that particular officer, but DHS has said that that was completely unacceptable, that that's not the way that they conduct these types of proceedings when they're detaining people at immigration court. But to your point, it's really surprising because these mass officers have been here for weeks, if not months, and separating so many people. We've seen those images, those videos of people crying, asking for help, and that hasn't been met with any consequences or even what's happened today to this officer. So it was interesting that they've sanctioned one of their own, it seems. It's unclear if he's been fired, he's on a brief absence, or if that's a suspension. I think we'll get that answer once they finish their investigation.
So we saw the mayor with Benjamin Netanyahu. Another close ally of Israel and of Netanyahu himself is former Governor Andrew Cuomo. What was Cuomo saying or doing today about Netanyahu's visit?
You know, we didn't get a response. We did reach out to his campaign, haven't gotten anything back, but Cuomo was out on the campaign trail, not necessarily public events, but he was out meeting voters in Manhattan. He went to a mosque in the Bronx. He also met with some business leaders. We know that they've been in the mix in the last couple of weeks when it comes to this idea that maybe the business community here is offering some jobs to Republican nominee Curtis Lewa or even our own mayor to jump out of the race. So that was on his schedule today, but I'm sure he'll continue to be busy in the next couple of days, Bobby.
I'm going to bring in our Dan Rivoli, who's also been out following the candidates on the trail this week. So, Dan, we have Cuomo visiting a mosque, which he's been doing a lot of lately, and we've had Mamdani visiting Jewish services. It seems like, we're seeing the candidates really trying to appeal to the religious vote.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. So Zohran Mamdani for Rosh Hashanah services went to a very progressive synagogue in Brooklyn with his ally Brad Lander, who is Jewish, the city's comptroller. They have been also big critics of Israel, and so Mamdani is trying to align himself, speak more with progressive Jewish voters here in the city who do not like the right-wing government of Israel, perhaps do not like the way Israel's conducting this war in Gaza. And then you have candidates like Cuomo, and I should mention also Mayor Eric Adams, visiting mosques and trying to undercut Mamdani with his base of Muslim voters here in the city by appealing to their more social conservative side. So you heard Cuomo and Adams tell congregants in a mosque, in a prayer room, that Mamdani supports prostitution. He said sex work is work. And of course, pretty in opposition to a socially conservative crowd. Yet a lot of them do support Mamdani. They feel kinship because Mamdani does talk about the Muslim experience here in New York, particularly after 9/11 with government police surveillance in mosques. So they are trying to undercut that as best way as he can, while on the flip side, you have Mamdani. A lot of Jewish voters do not trust him to defend them on issues of anti-Semitism. So he's trying to persuade them that he has their interests, and he's doing so through the more progressive Jewish channels here in the city.
We often hear so much in the city and city-wide elections about the Orthodox Jewish vote because often they tend to vote as a bloc based on who the leadership endorses. We haven't heard that much about it in this election. I mean, we know that Mayor Adams and Governor Cuomo have both been very supportive of that community. Why is that? Is that just not going to be as much of a factor, do we think, in this year's election?
I think it will be, but you have to wonder, will they have a clean break with Eric Adams, right? His name might still be on the ballot. He might still stay in this race till the end. Do they try to push some votes to him just to say, hey, we never abandoned you? Or is it really going to be, look, Andrew Cuomo looks like he is going to be the main opposition to Mamdani. Should we just go in with him and say, you know, Curtis Lewa, we like you, but sorry. So we have to see whether that ultimately happens. You know, I was looking through some polling because I heard Mamdani was on a Qatari TV station, and he said, you know, he's the candidate who has the most support from Jewish New Yorkers. I looked at a recent poll, not exactly, he might be overstating it. He did get 35% of the Jewish vote in one of the polls, but so did Andrew Cuomo. And then Adams and Sliwa also get a decent amount of Jewish support. So we'll have to see what happens as the race progresses, if there's conversations in the Orthodox Jewish community, other parts of the Jewish community, and say, look, the candidate we back might not be the exact, might be winning in November. I mean, we might have to look for an alternative.
Kelly, just in our last minute or so, we have, of course, spent so much time and energy talking about whether the mayor might drop out of the race. At this point, he is not conceding anything, right? And he has said continuously that we in the press are sort of undercutting his campaign and sabotaging him by continuing to speculate about this.
Yeah, that we're undermining him. He said this week we're the 6th person or the 5th person in this race. I think that's just the mayor, you know, lashing out amid all of this speculation of will he, won't he, or won't he. He also has this campaign finance multi-millions that he hasn't gotten, and I feel like the obstacles are just climbing for him, and it's increasingly getting to him, and that's probably why he feels like maybe the media has some part in that.
All right, Kelly Mena and Dan Rivoli, thank you both for joining the conversation. It is time now for a break. Coming up, the Justice Department has officially indicted former FBI Director James Comey. We'll bring you what President Trump had to say and what's next in a report straight ahead. And later, a documentary highlights the fight over the redesign of McGinnis Boulevard in Brooklyn. The director will join me to talk more about it. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
It's only a game. It's It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual.
When I come home late,
And a few generations.
you're always there.
And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s. But showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. President Donald Trump celebrated the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey today and suggested criminal charges against others he views as enemies will follow. The indictment marks a turning point in the president's promised campaign of retribution against his adversaries. He had pressured the Justice Department to take action against Comey, and the DOJ delivered. Our national political reporter Taylor Popolars joins me now from outside the White House with the very latest. Good evening, Taylor.
Hey there, Bobby. A lot of Democrats in Congress and many legal analysts are saying this is a first and big domino to fall because this indicates, as you laid out, that the president might be publicly and very clearly pressuring the Justice Department to go after people who have been critical of him. The president insists that's not the case, but this is the beginning of a big political process for the former FBI director. Justice in America is what President Donald Trump posted Thursday night, shortly after the Justice Department he oversees announced the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. Trump fired Comey early in his first term more than 8 years ago and has railed against him ever since, upset over the FBI's investigation of Russia's efforts to influence the 2016 campaign. The president last weekend publicly pressured Attorney General Pam Bondi to criminally charge Comey and other Trump rivals, saying, "We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and our credibility." He pushed out the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who wouldn't bring the charges, and appointed one of his former personal lawyers in his place, Lindsay Halligan, who has no prosecutorial experience. 3 days later, Comey was charged with making a false statement to Congress in 2020 and obstructing a criminal proceeding. He posted this video Thursday night.
My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
Friday morning, the president celebrated.
It's about justice, really. It's not revenge. It's about justice. It's also about the fact that you can't let this go on. They are sick, radical left people, and they can't get away with it. And Comey was one of the people. He wasn't the biggest, but he's a dirty cop.
Democrats call it a purely political prosecution.
These charges are going to be dismissed. James Comey will win in court. But what it reflects is a broader attack on the rule of law that should frighten every single American.
Now, the president said Friday morning that he does not have a quote-unquote enemies list of people he wants the DOJ to target. But in the same breath, Bobby, he said that he thinks and he hopes that other Democrats who have been critical of him will face charges. Some legal analysts say that his public comments so far about Comey's case could jeopardize a prosecution that they already felt was pretty weak. Bobby?
So, Taylor, talk about next steps for James Comey. I mean, obviously he's pretty defiant and speaking openly. I mean, a lot of times people get indicted and they hide from the press. He clearly wants to make the case for his innocence.
That's right. I mean, Comey over the last few years has been a very public critic of President Trump. It was President Trump who fired then FBI Director Comey during Trump's first term, and Comey has written several books. He went on a big press tour, so he's no stranger to the press. He's also no stranger to big investigations as the once head of the FBI. We know from court documents that he's set to surrender at a courthouse not far from here in Virginia on October 9th, so we'll have to see if that date sticks. But the president, and here at the White House, his administration is indicating that this won't be the last critic of the president who could face these charges. And just last weekend, President Trump was publicly naming everyone from New York Attorney General Letitia James to California Senator Adam Schiff as people he thinks should be targeted next.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about the enemies list and Letitia James. Obviously, there's been an investigation into potential mortgage fraud. So we know that there's, some type of investigation happening there. Is that another case where we could see charges sometime soon?
It would not be surprising, only because her case and the accusations made by the Trump administration in many ways mirror what we've seen play out with this Comey investigation. Letitia James is one of the kind of top targets of President Trump in terms of political criticisms over the legal efforts that she's pursued against him over the last few years and the many politically charged statements they've each said about each other. The Trump administration has even investigated her on a civil rights basis, going back to when she investigated the Trump Organization for fraud and got a judgment in that case. So it would not be surprising, especially with the president saying, and I'm quoting him, he thinks and he hopes that other critics will face charges soon. It's just a fascinating, unprecedented example of the president weighing in directly on how the DOJ is acting and how top officials could be targeted.
Taylor Popolars in Washington, thank you so much for that report. And coming up next, this year marks 400 years since New York City was founded. We will bring you a closer look at the city's history next. Stay with us.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost, and that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure, why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first, stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Most historians today mark 2025 as the 400th year since New York City was founded, linking the city's start with the construction of Fort Amsterdam by Dutch settlers. But the city's birth year has been up for debate, with the city's seal once putting it at 1664. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan joins me now with a look back at the city's history and why tracing its first year is a little confusing. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Bobby. So 1625 is the year we're talking about. It's when the Dutch set up a government at the site of New Amsterdam, Fort Amsterdam, and 1626 is when it was sold from Native Americans to the Dutch for $24.
This was kind of the prime real estate because this island, Manhattan, the Hudson River goes up to the Mohawk goes all the way west to the Great Lakes. Rivers were highways. That was your way to get access ultimately to the interior. So this was, for them, the missing piece.
For European voyagers arriving at the turn of the 16th century, almost at first sight, New York City had the makings to become the greatest city in the world.
They started planting tobacco, and then being entrepreneurs, they started doing all kinds of things.
Author and director of the New Amsterdam Project at the New York Historical, Russell Shorto, embarked on his own journey, consulting old translations tracing British explorer Henry Hudson's route. Then employed by Dutch traders, he traveled in the region nearly 15 years before the construction of Fort Amsterdam in 1625. The following year, records and legend say Manhattan was sold for $24 by Native Americans to settlers.
They were all traders, and they all had trade networks with the Caribbean, with South America, with different parts of Europe. So it became this very dynamic little kind of a Wild West town.
Inside the city's municipal archives at 31 Chambers Street, record keepers assembled mapping services showing the period between 1645 and 1680.
Archives collections are very paper heavy, and they document legal transactions like land ownership and trade deals. And this exhibit helped us really colorize some of those instances.
What we know as Washington Square Park in Greenwich Village marks the site where 10 enslaved men won freedom for themselves, but not their families. And Gravesend, Brooklyn, one of the few places owned by a woman, British settler Deborah Moody. But there's also debate over when exactly New York was born.
If you're counting from the government, that'd be 1625, which means we're in the 400th year now. But the Dutch looked to 1624 when they first arrived in what became their colony.
It's no accident that Wall Street still stands as the symbol of the free world and practically is the financial capital. It's also the site of the centuries-old wall surrounding that first settlement, where trade and protection alliances with the native Lenni Lenape Native Americans was key. Principles upheld on Manhattan Island then are familiar to New Yorkers today.
They had pioneered the idea of religious toleration, so allowing people from different religions to live together. So that gives you a multi-ethnic, multilingual society. And they pioneered capitalism long before the word existed. And if you put those two things together, you get New York.
In 1664, the British took over, and the land was renamed to New York as a gift to the Duke of York, brother of King Charles II.
He doesn't want to take it by force because he recognizes that what they've built here is special.
The way of life sharply contrasted with British colonies in Boston and Virginia, run by the religiously intolerant Puritans. And despite being at odds with the Dutch, the British decided New York was nearly perfect as it was.
New York has such a deep history, and its history is so influenced so greatly America's history. But New York kind of paves it over and keeps going.
And speaking of changing dates, Bobby, the seal of the city of New York has been changed several times. Now it says 1625, but in the past it said 1664, which goes along with when the British ended up taking it from the Dutch. But an Irish-American city council member a couple decades ago advocated to change it. I mean, look, the Irish don't like the British, but there's been a couple different changes in the past of the founding dates.
So I seem to remember sometime in the last couple of years, Mayor Adams talking about a big celebration for the 400th anniversary, but that hasn't really materialized, right?
The mayor said that they would have a full year, this was last year, a full year worth of celebrations celebrating New York City's history. They do have a website up on City Hall, the tourism website, several different exhibits, but we really haven't heard that much from Mayor Adams. at all about celebrating the birthday. Of course, next year will be the 250th anniversary of the nation's founding, which other organizations are, of course, making plans for. But in terms of what City Hall has planned for, you know, the municipal archive workers have been doing a lot of work there.
All right, Bernadette Hogan, thank you for that report. Also tonight in state politics, keep an eye on your mailboxes. Governor Kathy Hochul today announced that the state is ready to start sending out inflation rebate checks. Upstate political reporter Jack Arpey has more in this report.
The day has finally arrived.
Governor Kathy Hochul celebrating the launch of her long-awaited inflation refund checks, 10 months after they were announced as part of her State of the State agenda.
Depending on your income, up to $400 a person are going to get a check starting very soon.
The checks will be mailed directly to eligible New Yorkers over the next 2 months. There's no need to apply or do anything on your part to receive a check. If you are eligible as of your 2023 return, you can just wait for it to show up. Hochul said anyone can still file for tax credits even if you didn't earn enough to file initially in 2023 by backfiling.
I want to make sure our senior citizens know that they're not prohibited from enjoying the benefits.
Otherwise, you'll need to have a reported income of up to $300,000 if you're filing jointly and $150,000 if you're single. If you are filing jointly, under $150,000 will get you a $400 check. If you're under that $300,000 threshold but above $150,000, you'll get $300. For single filers, it's $200 if you made $75,000 or less, and $150 if you made between $75,000 and $150,000. Some have criticized the checks as a gimmick for the governor as she heads into her re-election bid next year.
Governors love to have excuses to mail out checks.
Like Ken Girardin, fellow with the Manhattan Institute. He slammed the state legislature for not standing up to Hochul and pushing harder for a use for the money which would have had a more lasting impact.
She's the governor, and she has an incentive to do stuff like this. The really disappointing part about all of this is the extent to which New York State lawmakers, who are basically the state's board of directors, didn't put up more of a fight.
But Hochul has consistently deflected the criticism, insisting the money is being sent back because the state's sales tax revenue jumped due to inflation.
This doesn't belong to us. This is because hardworking New Yorkers got slammed with higher costs of everything, and they had to pay more, and then they had to pay more in sales tax. So I said, why don't we give that back to New Yorkers? It's only there one time.
Jack Arpey for Inside City Hall.
It is time for a break. Coming up, I'll be joined by the director of a new documentary called Changing Lanes. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately, in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
For years, we have been trying to undo the car culture, laws which favor cars and motorists regardless of what happened to people. Human life matters a lot more than cars and trucks in this city.
The NYC Department of Transportation is moving ahead with changes.
We don't want to hear you. We built this neighborhood.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was a peek at a new documentary that chronicles the controversial redesign of McGinnis Boulevard in Greenpoint and some of the larger changes in the city's streetscape over the decades, including the impact that mayors from John Lindsay to Mike Bloomberg have had on the use of city streets. The documentary is called Changing Lanes, and I am joined now by the filmmaker, Ben Wolf. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So the film focuses a lot on the McGinnis Boulevard controversy, but in the context of all the larger changes to city streets that have happened over the decades, right? So talk about a little bit about just what's happened in the last couple of decades, right? I mean, there has been a big change away from cars sort of dominating the streetscape.
Well, I came to New York in 1991, and I've been a cyclist continuously in that time, and it's gone from being a really outsider sport activity. I used to show up at meetings like with a helmet and people would be freaking out. It's gone very mainstream, and I've enjoyed seeing that transition, mostly under the Bloomberg administration when really dramatic change was happening with Jeanette Sadiq-Khan being in charge of transportation at that time. And then under COVID times, I noticed the streets were getting a little hectic and dicey, and because my work kind of dried up at that time, I thought, well, this is an interesting subject to explore because there has been such dramatic change, sort of mostly positive, but also some backsliding. I also wanted to do something more broadly about just sort of politics in this country, and this seemed like a great microcosm to see how decisions are made and how progress happens or maybe doesn't happen.
Well, I thought the political, historical context here in the city was fascinating because, you know, mayors for decades have grappled with this.
Yep.
And with Ed Koch, he actually had Sam Shorts, right, of Gridlock Sam fame. He had him put in bike lanes and then tear them out, right?
Yep.
And then later implement a bike ban
in Midtown.
So, so what was that like?
Well, Koch was sort of a contradictory figure. He did, well, for one thing, it tells us that nothing is new under the sun. The same debates that we're having now were happening in the 80s and even earlier. But yes, Koch, because of the oil crisis and certain things that were happening for a little while, was really gung-ho trying to help people ride bikes and pedestrians in the city. But then because he started getting a lot of complaints, he sort of quickly backed away from that, had the lanes he had just put in taken out very quickly, and then tries to ban, much like today's delivery people are getting a lot of bad press. At that point, it was the bike messengers who were getting a lot of bad press. And in reaction, Koch bans them from Midtown. My movie makes the point that actually sets off a wave of activism around cycling that actually sort of launches cycling up to another level. So there's a lot of sort of pendulum swings that have happened in our history.
Yeah. So then how did you land on McGinnis Boulevard, which obviously has been a contentious issue for years now?
Well, so my work kind of dried up. I mostly work as a cinematographer in other people's movies, but I wanted to direct something of my own for a long time. And when my work pretty much stopped during the pandemic time, I started searching out, like, well, what would be a good story to follow? And I was shooting a bunch of different stories relating to street safety and street design, and the McGinnis story pretty quickly grabbed my attention. And in particular, I went to a meeting, which is featured in the movie, where part of the community held what they claimed was a public meeting and then locked out this part of the community that disagreed with them. And I thought, this is crazy. And this is quite dramatic and will make for a very interesting story. And it had more twists and turns than I could have guessed.
Yeah, and you go through some of the history of that as well, the all the deaths and injuries on McGinnis over the years. Talk about Mayor Adams, because as we see in the movie, he started out as something of a safe streets advocate and has sort of evolved, I guess you could say, over the years, right?
Yeah, there's been a big gap between the rhetoric of this mayor and the action, unfortunately. He talked very positively about continuing the kind of things that had happened, especially again under Bloomberg, but in fact ended up undermining a lot of his own, his own DOT would come up with plans, and then his administration would keep them from being executed. And then that's what was happening for much of the time with the McGinnis story. One thing I just want to just say outright is that, of course, I have my own opinions about this, but I'm also somebody that has a car. I use, for my work all the time, I'm using cars. So I don't really have a horse in this race. I think there's, it's great to ride a bike. It's great to be a pedestrian. It's great to drive a car.
Although I did read that you didn't use the car in the making of the film.
Yeah, that was a particular sort of challenge I made for myself, was would it be possible to make a movie without using a car? Because mostly when I'm moving camera equipment around and whatnot, I am driving around. And it turns out it is possible. I got a little trailer for my bike, and I would ride to do my different interviews and whatnot. I think what we can't, there's no really other side to safety. Like, safety has to be prioritized. And I would say that the other, another aspect of why I thought this is such an interesting story is I travel a lot for my work around the world. I see what first-class infrastructure can be, and unfortunately in New York we're often now coming up short, and that concerns me. I would say, I now know, like, per capita that we're having about 4 times as much injury and death on our streets as as a Paris or Copenhagen or whatever, and I think we should be as safe as those places, and not taking action just doesn't seem right.
So let me ask you, you've just wrapped up the movie recently, but you had to add a postscript because the Argentos, some members of the Argento family who were involved in the McGinnis controversy, were just indicted last month.
As well as part of the Adams administration. I mean,
right.
Yes.
So what was your reaction when you heard that news?
Well, if you had been following the story closely, you kind of knew there was some funny business going on, but I was reluctant to include it in the movie because there hadn't been there was no proof. Well, now we sort of are a lot closer to having proof. The trial still hasn't happened, but it was pretty clear, when you have a DOT working for a couple of years to come up with a plan, and then suddenly, for reasons that are never clear, the plan doesn't happen, something is going on.
Yeah. So tell us where people can catch the movie. It's just premiering next month.
Yes, it will premiere October 17th and 18th at the Architecture and Design Film Festival in New York. I believe the 17th is already sold out, but there are tickets available on the 18th. I believe you're putting the website up on the screen. It's adfilmfest.com. I think the month after, in November, it will show at the Bicycle Film Festival. It's going to be going into many film festivals. So hopefully you'll get a chance to see it, and then I hope to have some kind of streaming distribution later on.
And by the way, David Byrne of Talking Heads fame is a prominent.
He's a prominent interview. He's great because he's been riding a bike in New York City for about 40+ years, and he's a good voice to talk about the change. And he is also, I shot a concert film with him years ago, and he brings a bike on tour, and so he's ridden all over the world, and he can also talk about, he's a good voice to be able to compare what we have here with what's working well in other places.
All right, the film is Changing Lanes. Ben Wolf, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, thank you.
All right, it is time now for a break. Coming up, we'll turn back to the race for mayor when I'm joined by 2 top reporters in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer.
I'm so honored to be a meteorologist here at New York One because as a Brooklyn kid, this is the station that I grew up watching. Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
Your entertainment the way you want it.
With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Making the most expensive city in America affordable. And I've always said that the most important thing to me is that we fund these initiatives.
Cuomo is a coward.
This is a man who led the state of New York for more than a decade, couldn't name a single mosque. I don't want to understand what Andrew Cuomo felt like on the night of that primary, where those polls showed that they didn't count for much.
Polls are historically wrong, especially this year, especially in New York.
My campaign has been decimated. So my ability to raise money, my ability to get the money that I raised already, people cut my legs off.
Curtis Sliwa doesn't have a price. I came into this world with nothing. I'm going to leave with nothing, ashes to ashes.
You know why I think you're making it up, Mr. Sliwa? Because you have made it up many times before.
The only fact about Curtis Sliwa is that Curtis Sliwa is a liar.
It offends me in that these people think they know better than New Yorkers. Let New Yorkers make the decision.
He has a right to run. Eric has a right to run. I have a right to run. Of course, Zoran Mandami has a right to run. Let the people vote.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was a look back at the mayoral campaign trail this week. We are less than 1 month away from the start of early voting here in the city, and the mayor's race is entering the home stretch. And joining me now to discuss the race for mayor are 2 top journalists in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Nia Prater is a staff writer with New York Magazine. She is joining us for the very first time. She covers New York politics. And also joining us is Jeff Colton, who covers City Hall for Politico New York. Thank you both for joining me. So I do want to get to Mayor Adams and will he drop out of the race and all the job offers that he has or hasn't gotten. But I want to talk about Curtis Sliwa. You heard some of the back and forth there. He says he has gotten job offers worth millions of dollars, which he refers to as bribes, coming from Andrew Cuomo. So, Jeff, this was not a twist that I was expecting in the race.
I mean, with Curtis Sliwa, you have to expect the unexpected, right? So, yeah, this is something. That said, I mean, we've kind of been seeing it in the open. I mean, there have been many public calls by Cuomo supporters, by Eric Adams. Everybody has been calling on each other to drop out or to, I mean, the president of the United States was very publicly saying, yes, these other candidates should drop out. Like, I guess it is interesting that there was apparently money offered, but it's kind of nothing new. I should say, I mean, if the money is offered, that is technically illegal, but we also know that something like that would probably never get prosecuted under a Trump administration, so maybe it's irrelevant.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of details forthcoming on, you know, these alleged bribes that Curtis Sliwa was talking about. Nia, just tell me about your take on the Sliwa candidacy. I was with him on the Upper West Side the other day, and which is, you know, a liberal bastion here in the city. And Curtis Sliwa has plenty of fans out there, right? I mean, people are walking up and supporting him. So who knows? Maybe Curtis will surprise us on election day.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a level of authenticity that people appreciate about Sliwa. I mean, he's
a New York City character, right? I mean, people have seen him throughout the decades, have gotten to know him throughout the years. I mean, I think compared to your typical sort of politician like Mayor Adams or Andrew Cuomo, I think it's sort of offers something a little bit different from the norm right now. And of course, I mean, there's always going to be Republican voters that would never vote for, a longstanding Democrat. So I think there's that appeal as well.
Let's talk about what Zohran Mamdani has been up to today. I think on the Israel issue, differences between him and Mayor Adams and Andrew Cuomo was in stark relief with Netanyahu's visit to the UN and Mayor Adams appearing there to hear a speech and appearing alongside him. So what did we see today?
Yeah, this was, I mean, it's really notable to have so many world leaders walking out of the UN on Netanyahu to protest him. And then the mayor of New York City choosing to be in there. I mean, he this morning, we got an update to his public schedule that he would be at the UN. This apparently was a late decision to actually go stand with Netanyahu. The man is, I mean, he's an international pariah. Obviously, he has some supporters in the U.S. government, and Adams is one of them. But I mean, I was actually, frankly, surprised that Adams thinks that this is a smart political move to do so. But it's consistent. I mean, the mayor has been a very, very strong and consistent supporter of Israel, the Israeli people, the Israeli government. So but maybe I shouldn't have been surprised.
Yeah. So, Nia, talk about where we are with the Mamdani campaign. I mean, there's this issue also in an interview he did this week with our Errol Lewis on this walk and talk in Astoria. Mamdani talked about something I've heard him say more than once now, which is that it doesn't matter where the money comes from to fund his initiatives, including things like universal childcare. If he gets the money from elsewhere in the state or city budget, he doesn't need to, increase taxes on the wealthy or increase corporate taxes. Which is interesting. It almost sounds like he's starting to negotiate some of this stuff months before he even potentially takes office.
Right. I mean, I think it's just another example of how he's sort of, leaving the door open to, building these bridges with politicians he might not align with 100%. I mean, any major plank of his platform, he's going to need help from city council. He's going to need his relationships with the governor and the leaders in the state legislature. So I think it's showing that there's an openness to as long as I can get these particular things done, the details, we can work those out. I'm open.
Right. Let's talk about Andrew Cuomo. He was endorsed this week by Jim Walden, who has sort of dropped out of the race in spite of the fact he will also be on the ballot in November. And he's picked up some union endorsements in the last few weeks. So where do we stand on the Cuomo candidacy?
It's the same as it has been for the past month, 2 months. Yeah. I mean, there were an incredible amount of polls that came out in the past week. It was like every single pollster, they decided this is the time. And they all showed effectively the exact same thing. Mamdani with a very comfortable lead, Cuomo in second, and then Sliwa and Adams way behind. And we have not seen Cuomo rise in the polls. There has been no change. And Cuomo, came back and he relaunched his general election. Oh, I'm a totally different candidate. I'm going to be doing it totally different. It's been a little bit different. He's been appearing a little more, but I have not yet seen the coalescing around Cuomo. And I mean, Jim Walden, we knew this was coming. I mean, Walden said, I'm going to drop out. He said, I'm going to support the candidate who is polling the best against Mamdani. It's been clear that for a long time that has been Cuomo. So this isn't a huge surprise. And again, I just don't know what could possibly change in the next month for Cuomo to close that gap if we believe the polling. And I guess Cuomo's argument is, don't believe the polling, please. It's closer than it looks.
Well, if Mary Adams drops out, that does change things. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but we got to take a quick break. I'll have much more with these reporters when we return. Stay with us.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Florist Fire Design House. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. Spectrum helps me stay online. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. Without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
Get up to 4 months free when you bundle award-winning internet. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my reporters roundtable, Nia Prater of New York Magazine and Jeff Colton of Politico New York. So let's talk about Mayor Adams. There has been so much speculation about whether the mayor could drop out of the race before November 4th. He has pushed back against the press. He says he feels like he's running against us, and we keep talking, all this reporting and speculation is sabotaging his campaign. But when he's asked whether he's going to stick it out, he doesn't really answer, and he says things like, when I have an announcement to make, I'll make it. So it's kind of confounding what the mayor is thinking right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's sort of dealing with the reality that the remaining choices that he has are pretty, terrible choices from his perspective. I mean, it's either you drop out of the race and, like Jim Walden, there's a decent chance you're still on the ballot anyway and still pick off some votes from the anti-Mamdani camp. I mean, you stay in the race, you stick it out, and, most likely you get the same exact result, or you sort of, what people have been alluding to is quiet quitting. I mean, you just sort of, go through the motions, sort of, kind of, not really, and I think that's sort of the holding pattern that he's in right now. I think as much as we want to know what he wants to do, I think it's possible he also doesn't know.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, for a few weeks there, he was holding a lot of campaign events, right? And then now, all of a sudden, the past, week or so, things have seemingly kind of gone dark.
Yeah, he was really busy on the campaign side. And I'll say, I mean, he's still appearing in public a lot as mayor. And I have to note, I mean, he said, I've had trouble fundraising. The guy is doing great at fundraising. He has millions of dollars. He raised like $1 million in a month a couple months ago. Like, he's still, because he is still the mayor of New York City, and because there are still lots of people who have things that they want him to do in the remaining 3 months as mayor, he's doing fine with fundraising. And maybe that is what he's been doing. I mean, he said, I've been doing that. I've been busy. I have a day job. I'm the mayor. Honestly, I'm kind of over this question of will he drop out or won't he? Like, I'm kind of over it. And we see him polling in the single digits. And even if he did drop out, I don't think it would have a large impact on the result of the general election.
Right. Yeah. And he's got legal bills, right? So he needs to raise money, if not for the campaign, then to pay off some of his bills. And I mean, there's a lot going on too. Like, it's probably benefits him just to stay relevant for a few more weeks if he sticks it out in the race. And also, I don't think that Mayor Adams wants Andrew Cuomo to win either, as much as he may have a distaste for Mamdani. So that kind of changes the calculus for him as well.
Yeah, I think he's sort of trying to feel that out. I mean, what's a bigger motivator for him? Is it his dislike of Mamdani and the potential of him becoming mayor, or is it keeping Cuomo, a guy that he's, actively accused of, marginalizing black politicians in the city? I mean, is that a bigger, compelling reason to stay put? So I think he's just sort of, trying to feel it out and sort of figure out what his next move is. And I think, like you said, I think it benefits him to stay in this office that he's really, sought out for years and has really enjoyed and embraced being the mayor. So I think for now, staying put is probably his best option.
And I mean, we're a month out from early voting, so we're going to keep asking him if he's dropping out right up until the point it doesn't make sense for him to drop out anymore.
Absolutely.
The mayor continues to be at war with the city council, even in these potentially waning months of his administration. I mean, the latest thing was this housing project in the Bronx, Just Home, where he supported it, the council supported it, and then all of a sudden, the mayor doesn't support it anymore. So explain for us what's going on here.
This is Randy Mastro, First Deputy Mayor Randy Mastro, has been the main character of City Hall for the past few months. I mean, he has come in and just made a lot of changes. And I mean, this is just the latest one. This is something that the Adams administration had supported for a long time. And then they are basically reacting to community pushback. And we've seen this with several other projects, several other instances in City Hall. This is just the latest. It seems to be a decision of saying, let's reverse course from what the government, what the Adams administration has been working on for months, for years, and let's listen to the people complaining. And I mean, there's an argument for that. I get it, like the government has to be responsive to local complaints, but the frequency at which this is happening, and then the council pushing back on it, it's fascinating. And I don't know how this is going to end up, because this is going to be, yes, we probably only have 3 months left of Adams. And we also definitely only have 3 months left of Speaker Adrian Adams, who is term limited out.
Yeah. All right, guys, we are going to leave it there. Nia Prater, Jeff Colton, thank you guys both for joining us tonight. And that is going to do it for tonight's show. Join us on Monday when our guests will include Jocelyn Strauber, the Commissioner of the City Department of Investigation. And stay tuned for another episode of our weekly national political show, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, at 9 o'clock tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great weekend. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
That's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
We've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s. But showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Florist Fire Design House. We are a full production wedding and event company that focuses on florals. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They were here the same day, had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. And if I'm contacting a merchant via email or placing an order online, without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
One more road.
Spectrum is reliable, they're committed, they're fast, and they really take care of me as a business owner. Last year, when the really bad hurricane came through, our internet stayed the entire time. One of the businesses down the street